On this episode of the Spartan Sports Talk Show, we talk about Myles Garrett and his incident, the Houston Astros, and which NBA players could be traded at the deadline. Spartan Sports Talk Show is up next. And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the fourth episode of the Spartan Sports Talk Show. And I'm Andrew Mild, and if you listened to it before, we're talking about Myles Garrett, the Houston Astros, and which NBA players could be traded. So let's jump right into it. The first story is the Houston Astros. If you've been following the story, the Houston Astros were caught cheating during their 2017 championship run when they went on to win their first ever franchise's World Series. And if you've been following, you heard that Mike Fiers, the former pitcher for the team, who's now with the Oakland A's, said that they had a setup in the clubhouse, just right outside the dugout, and there's a camera in center field zooming in and stealing these signs of different catchers from different teams, and you hear loud banging every time a changeup was sent down. So if you go and watch Danny Farquhar when he was with the White Sox in 2017 in a meaningless ball game, like there wasn't a lot of people there at the game. He said that he stepped off and changed the signs because every time the changeup was put down by the catcher, they heard this loud banging. So he didn't know what was going on. So after the change of signs, the banging went away. And he said, I was throwing really good changeups and they're still being fouled away. And he just didn't understand. And this is aggravating to me. It's just aggravating because I went to Game 5 of the 2017 World Series between the Astros and Dodgers, and you're thinking to yourself, that was a great game. Like, this is a memory I'll never forget. Because obviously it's a World Series game and one of the best of all time, some have considered. The final score of that game was 13-12 with a walk-off single by Alex Bregman. But there's just certain things you can and cannot do. I mean, Alex Cora, who's now the manager of the Boston Red Sox, shortly after the 2017 run, went to Boston, won the World Series as the manager. He got caught stealing signs too when he was with Boston and with the Apple smartwatch. So you can't do that. You can't steal signs electronically. I'm okay with you being able to pick up what kind of pitcher's throwing because of a giveaway, like a tip pitch, like what they were doing against the Rays. When Tyler Glasnow was pitching against them, you could clearly tell that his hands were in different positions when you go throw a fastball or a curveball. That's fine. That's just always been baseball. But the technology standpoint, that's just bad. Because at that point, you're doing it at whatever it costs to win the game. And like today I saw that people are going to call the Houston Astros the Houston Asterisks because they're not happy that a cheating baseball team won the World Series. You can't, it's just bad. It's like this Houston Astros team is no better than Barry Bonds or Sammy Sosa or Mark McGwire or Jose Canseco, guys that use steroids to do as best as they can in baseball. And I saw a report the other day that the MLB is going to punish the Astros as of like we've never seen before in any sport, which I am okay with. If they don't fire AJ Hinch or suspend him for the year, I wouldn't be happy. That's the first step, is to suspend the person that was running the show. And another thing was that Carlos Beltran, who's now the manager of the New York Mets, who we'll be talking about later, how's this going to affect him in his job as the Mets? Because I guess he was one of the guys leading the way for that. And here, this is the thing that I saw. I had to pull it up while talking. Here are some of the home and away splits during that 2017 postseason run. So this is for Jose Altuve. At home, he batted at .472 with 6 home runs and 12 RBIs. On the road, he batted a .143 with only 5 hits, 1 home run, and 2 RBIs. His on-base percentage was a .513 at home and a .268 on the road. For Correa, .371 with 3 home runs and 10 RBIs. On the road, a .211 batting average with only 2 home runs and 4 RBIs. His on-base percentage was a .421 at Minute Maid Park and only a .231 on the road. Bregman, .273 average, .342 OBP, 2 home runs, 6 RBIs. On the road, a .154 batting average, a .175 OVP, 2 home runs and 4 RBIs. Brian McCann only batted .300 at home, only batted a .037 on the road. Gurriel did pretty good either way. Evan Gattis batted .300 at home and a .200 on the road. The facts are there, clearly. The facts are there that the Houston Astros were doing it at all costs to win that World Series championship. And Fiers, he knew he was wrong. He knew he was wrong. And I'm seeing other reports that the pitchers were also zooming in, seeing what they were calling. And I guess there's these bandages that they could hit a button and it pulses. And then they would tell the guys what sign was being thrown. I mean, what pitch was going to be thrown. What sign that showed up. Seriously? At what point is it enough? The Houston Astros are an embarrassment to the game of baseball. And if they are not punished harshly, then why won't other teams try this? And there's other reports of the Brewers and the Texas Rangers doing the same thing. I mean, Yu Darvish from the Cubs, which if you don't know by now is my favorite team, said that one time he was facing Christian Yelich and watched his eyes go from looking at Darvish to left center, where the Milwaukee Brewers bullpen is. So I'm not saying that the Houston Astros are the only team that are doing this, but the MLB needs to investigate and say, okay, are other teams doing this? Because now in the past 2 years, the 2017 and 2018 World Series champions were caught cheating. That was the Astros that we're talking about now and the Boston Red Sox. And also it doesn't help that one of the front office members of the Milwaukee Brewers worked for the Houston Astros in 2017. The Astros also got caught last year having a cameraman by the Cleveland Indians dugout. Enough is enough. Punish the Astros. This 2017 championship now is tainted. If you're an Astros fan, you almost have to be embarrassed of your team cheating. As me as a baseball fan or a person that I was cheering for the Astros during this year's run because of having an aunt and uncle from Houston that took me to the World Series game. I'm embarrassed for having that jersey and that hat. I hung up my World Series jersey that I wore with Altuve, wrote cheaters on a white piece of paper and taped it to the jersey. I am that aggravated with this baseball team. I'm so aggravated with this story. It's wrong. It's definitely wrong. I gotta move on before I blow a gasket. Here's an interesting thing. I forgot that Nike is now going to be making jerseys for the MLB coming into the 2020 season. And if you guys have been following, Nike also does the NFL and the NBA. So now they have the big three. And the first 2 teams to release their jerseys are the San Diego Padres and the Milwaukee Brewers. Padres jerseys are pretty cool. I'm not going to lie to you. They brought back to the yellow and the brown, which they had for the longest time. Like whenever I think of these colors, I think of Tony Gwynn when he played for the team. They are pretty cool. They remind me of college jerseys, especially the one that Tatis is wearing, the gray one off to your left hand side, my right hand side. And then the Milwaukee Brewers released theirs yesterday with the new logo, which is kind of like a spin-off of their old logo that they had coming up through the 80s. Their jerseys even look like college jerseys, especially the blue one with the yellow font. I think that's Craig Counsell, the manager, wearing that one. And he was also wearing the different hat to go with that. So I'm excited for a bunch of other teams to release their jersey, especially the Cubs or maybe other teams that are they have the expansion of changing their jerseys and what they look like, because like classic teams like the Cubs, Yankees, Red Sox, Dodgers, those kind of teams have been around for a long time. Can't really change their jerseys because they're classic, like the classic Yankee pinstripes or the Cubs home white jerseys with the Cubs logo on the left chest. That will always stay the So I'm excited for that. I haven't been this excited for jerseys to come out since the NBA and Nike started doing their own jerseys. MLB End of the Year Awards. So congratulations to the different managers and players that went on to win awards this year. You had Mike Shildt with the St. Louis Cardinals, Rocco Baldelli with the Twins, Pete Alonso with the Mets, Jordan Alvarez won Rookie of the Year, DeGrom won the second straight Cy Young, Verlander won another Cy Young, Bellinger MVP, and Mike Trout also won MVP. So let's go ahead and then look at their numbers for the year, starting off with the MVP, Mike Trout, who had a great year. This is the first time he's won an MVP since the 2016 season. He batted a .291 with a .438 on-base percentage, hit 45 home runs and drove in 104 runs for the Angels. And he did this before his season was ended shortly due to an injury. So that's impressive numbers. And he passed many different players on the WAR, like total career WAR. I'm pretty sure he passed Derek Jeter, a guy that went on to win, 3-4 World Series championships in his career with the New York Yankees. And then you have Cody Bellinger, another player that's from the Los Angeles area teams. He went on to hit 47 home runs, drove in 115 runs, drew 95 walks, batted at .305 with a .406 on-base percentage. That's a really good year for Cody Bellinger, and he's especially cutting down on the strikeout numbers. In 2018, he had 151 strikeouts and only 108 this year. So that's telling me one thing: the more times you put the ball in play, the better chance you have at getting the hit. I mean, that's simple math right there. And Bellinger's proved it this year by cutting down on the strikeouts, putting the ball in play, finding some holes in the defense. He had a great year for the Dodgers. The Dodgers should have been in the World Series, but of course, they fell apart against the Washington Nationals in the NLDS, and Bellinger didn't show up. And then we're going to move on to the Cy Young. Jacob deGrom, second year in a row with the Cy Young Award. This year he pitched just a little bit less, but still racked up 255 strikeouts, which led the National League. He had an ERA of 2.43, which is a lot different from his 1.70 last year, but he's just a dominant pitcher. I'm telling you, this guy is not one of the guys you want to face. He has one of the nastiest sliders in the game with a great fastball. He can go long innings. He seems one of those guys that starts good but finishes even better than how he started. Kind of like the AL counterpart, Justin Verlander, also had a really good year with the Astros, and they could have went either way with Verlander or Garrett Cole, but in my opinion, it should have went to Garrett Cole, because especially how Garrett Cole pitched really good in the postseason, and Verlander seemed to not show up in the World Series. But Verlander had a 2.58 ERA. He led the American League in innings pitched with 223, and he racked up 300 strikeouts. Impressive, especially for a man that's been pitching since 2005. He's an old man pitching for probably he's at the end of his career, so he's going to be done very soon. It's kind of weird to see Verlander in an Astros uniform for as long as he was with the Tigers, especially in the couple World Series runs he had with them that didn't result in championships. But arguably one of the best pitchers of my generation, up there with Clayton Kershaw or Felix Hernandez, those kind of names of guys that were able to dominate for so long and stay up there. Because Verlander, he's also one of those pitchers, like I said, with deGrom. Starts off good, but finishes better. And that's the type of pitcher you want to go in the late innings to dominate and to rely, and you don't have to rely on your bullpen as much, especially in this day of age when the bullpen is a big thing that you want to use. Rookie of the Year, Pete Alonso and Jordan Alvarez. Pete Alonso hit 53 home runs to break Aaron Judge's record that he set back in 2017. But he batted at 260, but still 53 home runs is very impressive. And then Jordan Alvarez had a great year with the Astros. He batted a .313 with 27 home runs, drove in 78 RBIs, and on-base percentage of .412, so he got on base a lot. He had a great year. He came out of nowhere as the DH for a dangerous Astros lineup. They were able to get to the World Series and lost in 7 games to the Nationals in the Classic World Series run by the Nationals. That's applaud to the Nationals for that dominant run. That was a great team. That probably one arguably the greatest underdog stories in recent history. And then for your manager of the years, you have Mike Schild of the St. Louis Cardinals, who went 91-71, won the NL Central Division, beat the Braves in 5 games, and made it to the NLCS before getting swept by that Nationals team. He had a great year. In my opinion, it should have went to the Atlanta Braves manager. He also had a great year, but those two either way. But I think it went to Schild because he was able to beat the Braves. And then Rocco Baldelli, I mean, a lot of question marks are surrounding this Twins team. In 2017, they made the playoffs but lost to the Yankees in the wild card. 2018, they totally missed the playoffs and just fell apart. Baldelli takes over as a first-year manager, goes 101-61. His Twins team leads the MLB in home runs hit by a team. Only thing was, once they got to the postseason, they ran into a deadly New York Yankees team that was just better than them. It's just they outslugged the Twins, and if I'm the Minnesota Twins, I got to go out and I got to get some pitching to go along with my great hitting. And the Twins still have a great farm system coming up to go with the already great lineup, obviously. So it's going to be interesting to see what the Twins do in this offseason heading up, especially with Rocco Baldelli being a former player, and you see that a lot. Arguably, though, you could have put Dave Martinez the NL Manager of the Year. By May, the Nationals had like a 0.01 chance of winning the pennant, and they went on to win the World Series. So the fact that Dave Martinez isn't on this list shocks me. I think the MLB heavily relies on the regular season way too much than necessary. I think they need to consider postseason runs also, because Dave Martinez easily would have won it. Speaking of managers, all these guys listed are going to be taking over their respective ball clubs that they're with. You have Joe Madden, who was with the Cubs from 2015 to 2019. He'll be going back to the team he started with the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. He was with the team when they won the 2002 World Series against the San Francisco Giants. David Ross then takes over the reins of the Chicago Cubs, a former player himself. So that's going to be pretty exciting for the Cubs fans. Mike Matheny took over as manager of the Royals, returned to the state of Missouri. He was the manager of the Cardinals for the longest time before getting fired last year. You have Gabe Kapler taking over the San Francisco Giants after getting fired by the Phillies. And then you see Joe Girardi, who was with the New York Yankees up until the end of the 2017 season after they lost in 7 games to the Houston Astros, as we've been talking about this entire time. Got fired and sat out all of 2018 and 2019. Going to go into the city of brotherly love and be able to manage Bryce Harper, in which I love that right there, Harper and Girardi, because Girardi seems like one of the managers that cares, but he's not going to be one of those guys that is a friend or a buddy. He's going to be a guy I'm your manager. And then Carlos Beltran, that's not a picture of him as a manager. That's actually him playing for the Mets back in the day. One of the best switch hitters, but like I said earlier, 2017 Astros, he was one of the guys that led that scandal that they're going through right now. So how is that going to affect him as the manager of the New York Mets? And then you have Chase Dingler, who's with the Padres. Not much known about this guy. This is the guy that's going to come with a lot of question marks around him because he never has managed a team. He was a coach with the Texas Rangers heading into the this year's offseason. He was with the Rangers all year last year, and he's now taking over the reins of the Padres, who are going to be World Series favorites coming up if they can make some moves and get their young guys up to the major leagues. They still are missing a good rotation. Mackenzie Gore, a former 3rd overall pick, is down in the minor league still. I think he finished the year out with AA, so he may be going out with the AAA next year. So the only team missing a manager is now the Pittsburgh Pirates. They have a lot of good options, so we'll see what they do. But this is the definite guys. And for me as a Cubs fan, the question is with David Ross. Is David Ross going to be a manager or is he going to be a buddy? They've interviewed him and he said, well, you know what? They call me grandpa and you guys thought, okay, that was funny. But he's like, I was really more of a leader in the locker room. And I could see that. He was a veteran leader. He didn't play as much. He played more on days when John Lester pitch because him and Lester were in Boston together for majority of the time before Lester was traded to Oakland in 15. That's why David Ross was with the Cubs to go with Lester to haul him in. Actually, no, Lester was traded to Oakland in 14, came to the Cubs in 15, and that's when Ross came. And then Ross was the face of this team in 16 during the World Series championship run. Like, the Cubs wanted to win for him, and that's what they did. He also hit a home run in Game 7 of the World Series against the Cleveland Indians. So I'm hoping that Ross does a great job with the Cubs because the past couple years they've collapsed, and it's not been fun for the fans to watch, especially in 18, had a team that had the second best record the third best record in the National League, only behind the Dodgers and the Milwaukee Brewers. The Brewers beat the Cubs in Game 163 to take the division. Then the Cubs lost to the Rockies in the wild card game. And then last year, the Cubs were up there in the race with the Cardinals and the Brewers, and they fell apart. Just total collapse of the team. There's just no production from any of the core guys. It was just the inconsistency. It was just bad. So I'm hoping Ross can turn this around and that the Cubs can make a couple more runs before the big names like Bryant, Baez, Rizzo's getting up there in age, Contreras, go to free agency and get the big contracts that they rightfully deserve. Bryant, former MVP, Contreras, one of the better catchers in the league. Baez is one of the more flashier players in the league. And Rizzo, the captain of the Cubs ever since he got called up in the 2014 season. And speaking of Cubs players, Javier Baez, MLB 20, the show cover. I'm excited for this. I love the picture. A lot of people are like, well, why isn't Cody Bellinger on here, or Mike Trout, or Jacob deGrom? Okay, so those guys are MVPs, but Javier Baez is the people's MVP. Like, you go to a Cubs game, like, people are chanting Javi. And I'm excited that the Cubs are trying to get him a long extension because he became the face of the Cubs last year in 2018 when injuries were happening. Like, Bryant was getting injured with a shoulder, and then you had Addison Russell. He had the domestic abuse problem. Rizzo was in and out of the lineup due to injury. So was Contreras. Baez stepped up and got second in MVP voting, which was just impressive. The only person he lost to was Christian Yelich, who almost won the Triple Crown in the National League. So I don't blame Baez for not winning it that year. But he's a flashy player. He's perfect for this. He hits bombs. He makes some of the best plays you'll ever see. Like, if you go on YouTube and type in Javier Baez highlights, fielding highlights more preferably, you're going to have a good time if you're a baseball fan. If you love flashy baseball, Baez is the definition of a flashy baseball player. So I think he's perfect for this. I'm excited for the show to come out because this is the first time a Cubs player has been on the show cover, and this is the first time a Chicago sports athlete made the cover. I'm trying to think the last one was Derrick Rose on NBA 2K13, in which he shared it with Blake Griffin and Kevin Durant. I know that Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews made the NHL covers in 2010 and 2011, the first time players from the same team went back-to-back years. But the Cubs are my team. They always have been. They always will be. So having Baez on the cover is going to be way more interesting than the guys from previous years. Okay, so this show is not political. Let me get that straight. It's not political. I never want to go into politics, but this is something I have to talk about and explain to the fans watching the show and try to tell them what's going on with this incident. So what happened was a man who and his girlfriend went to Taiwan, and he murdered her and came back. Well, Hong Kong did not have an extradite. Pretty sure it's the proper word for that. Could not send him back to Taiwan. So Hong Kong started to pass a bill where they could extradite someone to be persecuted for their crimes in another country. But the problem is they also go with the mainland China. Well, I didn't know this. I'm getting a good history lesson from this. But Hong Kong is a semi-autonomous region. I'm pretty sure I said that right, which means that they have their own rights even though they're a part of China. So like they still have the freedom of speech, freedom of the press, and the freedom to assemble, not like China has in general. So a lot of protests of people saying, hey, we don't want China to have that system be like a part of us because we want to be independent and have our own rights, which I'm not going to give my opinion on this. But then you had Daryl Morey, the GM of the Houston Rockets, say prayers up for Hong Kong because he was supporting the Hong Kong movement of not wanting to be a part of the Chinese government. And it just did not go well, especially with NBA preseason games going on there, especially one of them being the Los Angeles Lakers, who has the face of the NBA on their roster, which was LeBron James. And LeBron got stuck in the middle of it. And I think the one thing we can learn from this is sports and politics sometimes do not go well together. And I'm not saying you should, I mean, you can use the platform that you have to stand up for what you believe in. It's just you have to know the consequences are coming. That's the problem. Like Colin Kaepernick kneeling during the national anthem, has been in the league since 2016. And then you have Muhammad Ali stripped of his heavyweight championship after not wanting to go to Vietnam after being drafted. And people were not happy with that. So you had to know that was coming. Then, and like another one was Jackie Robinson breaking the color barrier. I mean, baseball was very popular during the 1940s, especially 2 years after World War II had ended. Jackie Robinson had to go through his hardships. So it's going to be you're going to have a lot of hardships of if you're going to stand up for what you believe in. There's a price to pay for anything like that. And I'm not going against LeBron James's movement of the reporter said, shut up and dribble. And LeBron James said, I'm not going to just shut up and dribble. I have almost a responsibility to stand up for the people that don't have the voice like I do. Like LeBron James is the most popular athlete in the world. No doubt in my mind. But you could argue like soccer players like Ronaldo or Messi, but LeBron James is the most popular athlete to come out of North America as of right now, and probably will until he retires. And you may have a replacement like Giannis Antetokounmpo or Kawhi Leonard, one of those other players. But right now, the king is sitting on his throne, and he is the voice of the NBA. He's the face of the NBA. He just tried to do the right thing. It just did not work out as well as he thought. Here's a fun little interesting snippet. Carmelo Anthony is returning to the NBA. After being released last year by the Houston Rockets, he got a contract to join the Portland Trail Blazers, and he's going to be playing with Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum. So we're just looking at Carmelo Anthony's numbers. He got traded to the Thunder in the 2017-2018 season, played 78 games for them, averaged 16.2 points, and then last year he averaged 13.4 points with 5.4 rebounds. I think this is a good fit because Melo needs the Trailblazers. He needs to play for Portland. He needs to do good there and get his career revitalized because he is one of the better players of my generation, especially from that draft. I believe he was drafted in 2003, and he went to Denver, and he was one of the better players to play with the Nuggets for all that time. And then he went to the Knicks, and he was doing great with the Knicks. I mean, he killed the Bulls that one Christmas Day game when he hit 2 clutch threes over the Chicago Bulls. I know one of them was over Taj Gibson. And he has been in the league all year. Like people thought he was going to go to the Big Three and play in that league that ran by Ice Cube. But the Trailblazers need him. They need a third scorer. You have Damian Lillard, who is arguably one of the best scoring guards in the league, one of the most clutch players in the league. And then you have CJ McCollum, who is a great shooting guard, one of the better shooting guards in the league. These three guys, if Melo can get back to just at least prime Melo, just a little bit, there's no knowing what this team could do. I think the one thing that the Trailblazers need to do is allow Melo to work from the post into the mid-range game, because I know like a lot of teams are getting away from that thanks to Steph Curry's kind of movement that he started for making all those three-pointers and won a bunch of MVPs. And you see a lot more three-pointers, especially like one-pass three-pointer or in the transition game. Get it down to Melo and let him work. He was great from the post. And the one year he won the scoring title, that's all he did. He got down low. He hit post shots. He had a lot of fadeaways, or he like they put him on the elbow, put him in an ISO, and allow him to use a jump shot or go against a different guard, or like that's what made him so successful. Because Carmelo Anthony, anything within the elbow to just below for a layup, he's dangerous. Don't put him behind the arc, and don't force him something that he's not. Melo has always been a mid-range guy. That's how he was brought up. You can't force him to start shooting a bunch of three-pointers and expect him to produce like you want him to. That's just not how he is. It's not the type of player he ever was. I mean, the Portland Trailblazers are 5-9. They're not off to the start they wanted to. This is a team that made the Western Conference Finals last year and lost to a much better Golden State team. Trailblazers, they need this Melo move. They needed it. The best thing that happened for Melo is that the Trailblazers are struggling right now. Hopefully he can produce because, like I said, he was up there with LeBron for the longest time and D Wade, with one of those guys, especially in Kobe, for the longest time. So we'll see how it goes for Melo. His first game is Thursday against the New Orleans Pelicans. All right. So the most surprising team and the most disappointing team, to say the least. So the first team is the Miami Heat. For me, the most shocking team. Did not see this coming. Of course, this is the team that went out and got Jimmy Butler. But that was about it. That's all they had, really, from my standpoint. They traded Hassan Whiteside to Portland. But Kendrick Nunn stepping up. Tyler Hero stepping up. Those guys have been producing. Kelly Olynyk, Miles Leonard. Of course, Jimmy Butler is the great player that he is. The Heat are 9-3. They won the last 3 games. They have not lost a home game all year long. They're behind the Boston Celtics and the Milwaukee Bucks in the Eastern Conference. It's a great team. They're having a great run. I forgot that Goran Dragic also doing really good with the team. So if you're a Miami Heat fan, you're feeling pretty good right now, and you're hoping that they can stay healthy and at least make a run in a very weak Eastern Conference. The only thing that I would have to do for them is be aggressive when the trade deadline comes and try to get like a veteran leader from the bench, like a veteran scorer. A good guy to look at would be Derrick Rose. If the Detroit Pistons want to do a fire sale, because they talked about it this year, if they don't have a good year, if they have like another 7th or 8th seed, they're just going to trade away Blake Griffin, Andre Drummond, Reggie Jackson, and Derrick Rose probably have to go out the door too because he's over 30 years old. There's no point in keeping him building a team around a 6th man. And then the Spurs, I don't know what happened. I was shocked when I was looking at the standings. The Spurs are 5-9, 13th in the Western Conference, on a 6-game losing streak. I don't think I've ever seen the Spurs struggle this bad, ever. Because when they were winning, when they were dominant, like their first NBA championship was 1999. That was the year I was born, and they have not missed a postseason in the longest time. I can't remember what the number is. I know it's over 20 years, but they brought Tim Duncan as an assistant coach. It's not working. I'm not sure what's going on. I thought the Spurs team was going to have a great year. Last year, people slept on them with DeRozan and Aldridge. They both stepped up, and they got DeJounte Murray back. I don't know what's going on. They have Rudy Gay. They may have their own fire sale of their own. There's a rumor going around that DeRozan could be traded, and they may just wait out LaMarcus Aldridge's contract because Aldridge is already like 35 years old, 34 years old. So, again, if I had to go back to the beginning of the season and you told me the Heat and the Spurs were the most shocking team and the most disappointing team, I would put the Spurs as the most shocking team and the Heat as the most disappointing team. And I think that's what's a great thing about basketball is you never know who's going to be good. But then again, it's only November. Still a lot of time for improvement. This is just a general sense of the first 15 games played in the year. So nothing to worry about if you're a Spurs fan. You still have the greatest coach in the NBA as your coach. And if you're the Heat, I wouldn't get too comfortable because you never know with injuries. It's still a really long season. It's still over 60 games to be played. You just got to hope that they can stay healthy and that the rookies keep producing. And like I said, Blake Griffin, Andre Drummond, Reggie Jackson, and Derrick Rose may be traded. So I thought, well, what if we look at other players that could be traded during the deadline? It's coming up faster than we think. The first player that I think that was interesting on this list is Steven Adams. Steven Adams, he's averaging 8.4 points, but he's not much of a scorer anyway. He's more for his rebounds. He's averaging 9.4 rebounds, which has been consistent for the past 3 years of over 9 rebounds a game. He's a great rim protector. Where's the blocks on here? I mean, he averages around a block a game. He's a physical player. This guy that you want on your team, not the type of guy you want to face all the time. He'll be traded for some good draft picks. The Thunder have a lot of draft picks right now, especially after they traded Paul George to the Clippers. Got a haul of draft picks. They also got Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Gallinari. But for me, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is the big piece. He's a great player. He's having a great season so far with the Thunder. I'm very interested to see if he can keep improving. And he's a point guard. So Chris Paul, who's being his veteran mentor right now, is another guy that could be traded. So we'll see what they do with him. I know the Thunder expressed interest in trading him. Just maybe one of those instances, if he can stay healthy, then get rid of him, because Chris Paul is already 33, 34 years old. Big contract that he signed to go to the Houston Rockets. We'll see how that goes for Chris Paul and CP3 and the Oklahoma City Thunder. DeMar DeRozan, like I said, could be traded. The core players from the Raptors, Lowry, Ibaka, and Gasol from last year's championship run could be traded. But if I were them, I wouldn't be too worried. They're fourth in the Eastern Conference, and they're 9-4 as a team. D'Angelo Russell, first year with the Golden State Warriors, was in a sign-in trade for Kevin Durant. Wanted to go to Golden State because Kyrie Irving was coming. Rumors that the Timberwolves are already calling Golden State saying, hey, can we get D'Angelo Russell? And then pairing up D'Angelo Russell, Andrew Wiggins, and Karl Anthony Towns. Could D'Angelo Russell be that missing piece that the Timberwolves need? And D'Lo and Cat are good friends. They were both drafted in the same year. You had Cat go first, and then D'Lo went second to the Los Angeles Lakers. So I'm interested to see if D'Lo does go to Minnesota. Kevin Love was another big name, the guy that signed a big contract to stay with Cleveland Cavaliers. Cavaliers aren't doing very great. They lost to the Knicks the other night of a score of like 130 to 105 or 115. One of those. It was still a big win by the New York Knicks over the Cavaliers. Kevin Love, one of the better talents in the NBA, should not be wasting his time on this Cavaliers team who's trying to rebuild after LeBron James left to go to the Lakers, and that Kyrie was traded to Cleveland. Well, actually, he was traded to Boston. They got Isaiah Thomas in return. Isaiah Thomas did not work out. They traded him away. Iguodala with the Grizzlies. He's not going to play a single minute for the team. There's already rumors that the Lakers and the Clippers are trying to get him there. Dion Waiters with the Heat. It's not working out between him and the Miami Heat. He got suspended by the team after he ate an edible and it freaked out on the airplane to an away game. Blake Griffin, and then all the other guys I listed could be traded. And let's look at Blake Griffin's numbers with Detroit this year. He's averaging 19 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists. He's a stud on the offensive side of the basketball. And if you're a Pistons fan, you want the team to do good so you can keep Blake Griffin. But if they don't do good, then why waste their time? Trade Griffin and Drummond and Jackson and Rose before it's too late, when their stock is too low. Go out and get some first round picks, second round picks. Try to build up a team. Try to build through the draft. Get some young guys on the team and start a new brand of Detroit Pistons basketball, because these are the guys that you need to trade. This is what the Clippers did when they traded Chris Paul to the Rockets. This is when they traded him to Detroit, Blake Griffin to Detroit, and DJ to Dallas in the signing trade. So, and now they have Kawhi Leonard and Paul George and favorites to win the NBA championship. So keep an eye out for December 15th, especially for D'Angelo Russell, because he's signed with the Warriors, so he can't be traded to the 15th. So we'll see what the Golden State Warriors do. One of the worst teams in basketball. They've only picked up 2 wins. I think they're up to 11 losses. They're struggling really bad right now. Steph Curry's out for the year. Draymond Green's injured. Klay Thompson's out. Kevin Durant's not even on the team anymore. D'Lo's out now with I believe it's a thumb injury. If you're a Golden State fan, you're like in a totally different space right now, because you made the NBA Finals for 5 years in a row, won 3 championships, and lost 1 to the Cavs in the Game 7, and another one to the Toronto Raptors. So we'll see how it goes for all these guys on this list. And if you're a fan that has a really good basketball team, like if you're a Clippers fan or a Lakers fan, you have to be excited and hoping that you can snag one of these guys and get them on your roster for the late regular season push. All right, well, this is interesting. Never seen anything like this. Myles Garrett rips off the helmet of Mason Rudolph after he tackled Rudolph after 2 straight sacks in Rudolph. Rudolph had a terrible game, had 4 interceptions on, I believe this was a Thursday night game. Myles Garrett rips off his helmet and then hits Rudolph on the top of the head with it. So I heard a lot of fans talking, saying, Rudolph started it. Not sure why he's not getting suspended. My response every time was, yeah, he may have started it, but Garrett took it too far. One proper hit on the head with a helmet, but especially with Myles Garrett's strength. The only reason why Myles Garrett was the first overall pick was because he had a great combine coming out of Texas A&M. Could have ended Mason Rudolph's career. Just one proper hit on the top of the skull with the helmet. And Garrett's suspended for the rest of the year. Mason Rudolph got a big suspension. I believe another defensive tackle for the Browns got 1 game, and some of the offensive linemen for the Steelers got suspended. This is terrible for football. Football is trying to be safer. And Garrett doing this is not good publicity. Like, people are going to watch football now, but if you're Myles Garrett, you can't do this. You're the first overall pick from a couple of seasons ago. Your team is not having a great year, and now they're losing one of its best defenders, arguably the best defender on the team. You can't let your emotions take control in a situation like this. And it's easy for me to say sitting here because I'm not playing NFL football, and I never will. But it's disgusting. It's awful. You have to be embarrassed to be a football fan, or even a Browns fan in general, or even a Steelers fan. You may even be embarrassed because of how how Rudolph acted. It was frustration by Rudolph. He negotiated it. Well, he started it, and then Garrett finished it in the worst way possible. They tackled Garrett, started kicking him and punching him and holding him down. The referees had no idea what was going on. If you're Coach Tomlin of the Steelers, you have to take control of the team. And if you're the Browns head coach, I think Fred Kitchens is his name. I'm pretty sure that's correct. I don't even know what I would have done in a situation like that. One of my more talented players acting in that fashion is embarrassing and almost seems like I don't have control over my team. And this is a team that had very high expectations coming in. And right now, they're 4-6. Odell Beckham Jr. is not having a good time. Baker Mayfield's having a bad year. Now you're losing Myles Garrett, and it's his fault. Moving on to the Madden Curse. So this was actually from the Mario, who helps on with the show and with Spartan Stream, asked me, he goes, well, do a topic on the Madden Curse, because he was very interested and wanted to see my opinion on it. So I had to do some digging from the first time there was a cover athlete, which was 1999, up until now with Patrick Mahomes in 2019, or actually Madden 20. So the first person to ever be on the Madden cover was Garrison Hurst, who was a running back for the San Francisco 49ers. In a playoff game, he suffered a nasty ankle injury, and then he went and got surgery, and from the surgery caused a bone in his foot to die, and he missed the next 2 seasons. So the first time the Madden Curse hit hard, that was probably the worst one on this list. The next one is Dorsey Levens, which is interesting. Barry Sanders was supposed to be on the cover of this one, but he retired due to that early retirement that a lot of people said, well, he would have broken Walter Payton's record. But I think it really came down to he wasn't winning in Detroit and wasn't happy. And it's one of those things, you're a legend for a team, you can't ever leave the team. So Levens took over last minute. And due to a foot injury, Levens and the Packers went 8-8, and he was released 2 years later by Green Bay. 2001, Eddie George of the Tennessee Titans. Great year. Went 13-3, and in the playoff game against the Ravens, bobbled a pass that Ray Lewis took away from him, ran all the way to the house, scored the touchdown, and ended the season for the Titans at a final score of 24-10. George never ran for 1,200 yards ever again. And I'm pretty sure the Ravens won to win the Super Bowl that year against the New York Giants and one of the best defenses of all time. They broke the least amount of points scored in a season against a defense from the 85 Bears. 2002, Dante Culpepper, shortly after being named the cover athlete, got a knee injury against the Pittsburgh Steelers, missed the rest of the season, and only threw 23 interceptions and just 18 touchdowns that year. Marshall Faulk, 2003. The year he was an athlete, Faulk did not run for 1,000 yards, and he was on the decline for the rest of his career. Pretty sure he retired about 2 to 3 years after being the athlete. 2004, Mike Vick. No, it's not the dogfighting. Vick fractured his fibula in a preseason game and missed the first 11 games of the season. 2005, Ray Lewis did not record one interception and tore his hamstring in a Week 6 game and missed the rest of the season for Baltimore. One of the best defense players of all time. Donovan McNabb, 2006, tore his ACL in Week 11 of his cover season, and it was never the same. And this is Donovan McNabb that took the Eagles to the Super Bowl around this time, I believe. Pretty sure it was around this time that he took the Eagles to the Super Bowl. It was never the same again. 2007, Shaun Alexander broke his foot in Week 3 and couldn't run for 1,000 yards since the first time he became the starter of the Seahawks. And in 2007, Alexander suffered a fractured wrist, sprained knee, and a sprained ankle, and did not make the 2008 roster for the Seahawks. And this was the first time people started to see a correlation between players making the cover and then getting hurt or not producing as they once were before they were the cover athlete. 2008, Vince Young. And then this was the first time that a player made a regional coverage with Luis Castillo in Spain. Young struggled and injured his quadricep in Week 6. He returned and re-injured in the final game of the season. He returned just to have his knee injured and lost his starting position to Kerry Collins. Luis Castillo injured his knee and missed 6 games while with the Chargers. 2009, Brett Favre. This one has 2 different covers, one with the Green Bay Packers and one with the New York Jets. This was the first Madden I had ever owned, and I'm pretty sure if I were to dig and find it, I'm pretty sure it was the Jets one, because me as a Bears fan, I would never get anything with the Green Bay Packers on it. But he retired, then he returned to the Jets and didn't do all that bad, except Favre injured his shoulder that plagued him for the rest of his career until he retired with the Vikings in 2011. 2010, this is the first time we saw a cover athlete actually be safe with Larry Fitzgerald. He had a Pro Bowl year. His numbers were a little down, but that was because Kurt Warner did not play. I'm not sure who the quarterback was. They went through a lot of quarterbacks at that time, like Drew Skelton, Drew Stanton. It was a lot of bad quarterbacks that the Cardinals fans had to go through before Carson Palmer became the quarterback. But Troy Polamalu, different story. Battled an MCL injury and only managed to play in 5 games the entire next season. 2011, Drew Brees threw 22 interceptions and lost to the Seahawks in the wild card game. And if you remember, here's a little trivia. That was the game Marshawn Lynch broke like 5-6 tackles. He ran all the way to the house for one of the loudest fan cheers of all time when he took it all the way to the house. Obviously, the Seattle Seahawks are known for their 12th man, as they call it, and that was the loudest it had ever been after that run, because the Saints had just won the Super Bowl the year before against the Indianapolis Colts. 2012, the one-hit wonder, Peyton Hillis. Contract disputes with the Cleveland Browns, only played in 10 games, and only ran for 587 yards, and left the team in free agency. He went to the Kansas City Chiefs, and he just never was the same. A lot of people only know Peyton Hillis from the 2012 cover, and that'll be about it. 2013, Calvin Johnson was safe. So this was the second time we'd seen a cover athlete be safe for the entire season. Pretty sure that was the year Calvin Johnson broke the record for most receiving yards in a single season. Man, 25. AP injured his foot, played in 14 games, and ran for 1,266 yards. Not too bad, but considering that the year before he ran for 2,097 yards and was just short of breaking Eric Dickerson's single-season rushing record. 2015 was safe. That was Richard Sherman. 2016 safe for Odell Beckham Jr. 2017, Rob Gronkowski. Injury after injury after injury. Only racked up 25 catches for 540 yards and 3 touchdowns. Gronk watched his team win the Super Bowl from the sidelines. 2018, Tom Brady is safe for me, but this is up to the listeners or the watchers of this. He lost Super Bowl that year to the Eagles. So that's truly up to the fans if he's cursed for losing the Super Bowl, or the Super Bowl loss should not discredit that he was safe for the season, not getting injured, and still had a good year. 2019, Antonio Brown. We've talked about this. After the cover athlete, he has still had a good year with the Steelers, but after that, trade to the Raiders, never played a single down, went to the Patriots, played 1 game, 2 sexual misconduct or sexual harassment cases came out. He's not on any teams right now, and he's having to deal with that. And now to our current player, Patrick Mahomes, took the team to a 12-4 season last year, lost to the Patriots in overtime in the AFC Conference Championship. Right now, I'm pretty sure the Chiefs are 7-5 or somewhere around that. Let me get the exact number. But the Chiefs are already up to their limit from last year. He injured his kneecap in a Thursday night game trying to run a QB sneak. Actually, the Chiefs are 7-4. QB sneak up the middle. His kneecap came out of place. He missed a couple of games. All right, so are the San Francisco 49ers and the New England Patriots the real deal? The 49ers have 1 loss in the year. That was to the Seattle Seahawks on Monday Night Football in the classic game. They came to the kicker missing it, and I think if the 49ers would have Robbie Gould was injured for the game, they might have been able to pull that game out in overtime against the Seahawks. But they're 6th in total defense, 2nd in total rushing, number 1 total defense, and number 1 in total defense against the pass. Tied 4th for sacks. This is a really good team. The only problem is that they play a lot of bad teams. They beat Tampa Bay, Cincinnati, who hasn't won a game, Pittsburgh with no Roethlisberger, the Cleveland Browns, the LA Rams, who had no Todd Gurley, Washington. They beat Carolina pretty bad. They don't have Cam Newton. And they beat the Arizona Cardinals very young behind the first overall pick, Kyler Murray, who's in his rookie season. And they got tested against Seattle, and they lost. And then they beat Arizona again this past weekend. But I'm interested to see if the 49ers team is the real deal. They have a really good defense. Jimmy Garoppolo still has a lot of question marks around him as if any other quarterback. So we're going to keep a close eye on San Francisco. A lot of people are excited because they were undefeated there for the longest time. They're the last team to lose a game. We'll see how it works out for them. If they're the real deal or just a team that has a good schedule. New England Patriots, also a team that coming in as defending Super Bowl champions, but also have a easy schedule. They play the Bills, who's a good team, but not as good as the Patriots. The Dolphins, only 2 wins on the year. The New York Jets, terrible. They played the Cleveland Browns, a bunch of other bad teams, but they played the Baltimore Ravens and they got beat bad. Good football team. Finally were able to get the Patriots their first loss in the year. They beat the Eagles over the weekend, but the Eagles not as great as they used to be. Not the same Super Bowl champion team we saw a couple years ago. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes for the New England Patriots. If they're going to return to the Super Bowl again, I cross my fingers and hope that they don't. I want to see different teams, kind of like with the NBA there for Golden State and Cleveland for 4 years in a row. I just couldn't take it anymore. It was the same thing. It was kind of like when you watch the same movie over and over again and you already know how it's going to end because Golden State was stacked and then LeBron didn't really have anything towards the end there. So, again, I'm hoping Patriots don't make it. The 49ers, interesting team that we need to watch out for, and if they're going to make a good run in the playoffs. Another team need to watch, Baltimore. also having a great year. Lamar Jackson having an MVP-like year. I apologized to him in one of the shows earlier because I thought he was going to be a bust, but right now he's showing out. Ravens are having a good year. We'll see how it goes for him. Rant session time. The Chicago Bears, my favorite team. My favorite team coming into the year, should have been in the Super Bowl last year. I'll say it once. I'll say it again. They had the team for it. Lost on the double doink. But, Lord, they are not good this year. They are just bad. I'm trying to find their record. It's not a good record compared to last year. They are right now 4-6, which it's not a bad record per se. It's still a winning. It's not a winning record, but it's only a 2-game difference from 500. But this is a team that went 12-4 last year, won the NFC North. People were excited. One of the most dominant defenses in the league, number one true defense. Trubisky wasn't that bad. So a lot of question marks around the guy, and I said he's young. Give him some time. I gave him my time, and he's doing terrible. Eddie Pinheiro, kicker, thought he was going to be the answer. Nope, not the answer. Missed 2 field goals against the Rams and missed the game winner against the Chargers. So ideally, the Bears should be 5-5 if he would have made that field goal. But the Bears' offense is horrendous. 29th in total offense, 30th in passing offense, and 28th in rushing offense. There's 32 teams in the league. The defense is up in the top 5. The offense is in the bottom 5. It's the tale of two cities, per se. In one end of the spectrum, really good. The other end of the spectrum, really bad. What do the Bears need to do to win football games? Here's the answer. Keep it simple. Get the offensive line to get some blocks for the running backs. Establish a good run game. Run the clock out like we did last year and allow the defense to go on the field, go 3 and out, get back off the field, and then take your time. The football team can't win a game if they don't have the ball. Simple as that. The offense can't score if they don't have the ball. I'm just baffled that Nagy went to something that worked all last year and changed it. Is it too late to go back to last year's team? Like, the Bears were one of the most popular picks to win the Super Bowl, and now people are writing them off. And for me, it's frustrating because I thought for sure, Super Bowl. I even picked them on the original sports show with Angel last year. If you listen to that, I picked the Bears to go to the Super Bowl. I was that confident in my football team. And I wasn't picking that from a fan standpoint. I'm picking that from a okay, defense wins championships, the Bears can do it. And they should have. They should have had it last year if Cody Parkey didn't have that field goal blocked. And right now, it's even more frustrating with a team that has high expectations being terrible. For the Bulls, I mean, they're not good, but I have low expectations coming in anyway. The Cubs fell apart. The Bears are awful. I can't win right now. It's not a good time to be a Chicago fan in general. It's hard to put on the orange and navy on Sundays because I get so frustrated. I get the vein in my head. I'm yelling at the TV. People don't want to be in the same hall as me when the Bears are on. I just want last year's team to be back because there's so much fun watching them. But this year is a totally different story. All right, my moment of the week, celebrating the 15th anniversary of the Malice in the Palace. I think it's only fitting that this happened a week after the Myles Garrett incident. I wonder if we're going to have a cool name for it, like Malice in the Palace. But if you don't know this, Ron Artest fouled one of the Detroit Pistons players. I'm totally blanking out on his name right now. Let me pull it up real fast. Malice in the Palace. Ben Wallace. That's right, it was. He fouls Ben Wallace, and the final minutes, Pacers are up 15 at that point, and a fan throws a water bottle by the scorer's table where Ron Artest is, and he runs up, and it's just a big fight. He puts his hand around the throat of a fan. Ron Artest got suspended the rest of the year. Steven Jackson got 30 games. Jermaine O'Neal got 15. Ben Wallace 6. Anthony Johnson 5. And then Reggie Miller, Derek Coleman, Chauncey Billups, and Eldon Campbell all got 1 for this brutal fight. It's arguably the worst fight in sports history for like any North American sport, really. I can't really think of any big baseball brawl. Well, it could be that 10-cent beer night that happened in Cleveland. That could be a big one. I can't think of any bad football ones that happened besides the Myles Garrett one more recently, as we talked about earlier. But this is the worst one that ever happened in basketball. I mean, when the fans get involved, that's when you know it gets bad. When Ron Artest went to the stands. Ironically, when he retired, Ron Artest's name, Meta World Peace. You can't make this stuff up. So that's going to do it. That's going to be all for the 4th episode of the Spartan Sports Talk Show. Again, if you want to join the podcast, email me at ammile2022@manchester.edu. We'd love to get you on the show and hear your opinions about what's going on in the sports world. I know a lot of people want to talk about the Myles Garrett incident, Houston Astros. A lot of people love talking basketball, who they think is going to be the MVP. Try to get you on and have some fun with it. Don't forget, you also you can check out the Chetplex Wrestling Podcast. We'll be heading out to AEW event on tomorrow. So make sure you check out the Spartan Stream website and catch up on your latest shows, and make sure you also listen and check up on when a broadcaster could be coming up. Just look up the men's and women's basketball schedule and tune in and have an exciting time listening to your black and gold. So for myself, this is it for the Spartan Sports Talk Show. So you have a good day, Manchester.